வணக்கம். கோர்ஸ் கான்செப்ட்ஸ். யூனிட் 3 டேட்டா. Data in research refers any information that has been collected, observed, generated, or created to validate original research findings. It is collected, stored, and processed to produce and validate original research results. Primary data. It is the data that has been generated by the researchers himself or herself by surveys, interviews, experiments specially designed for understanding and solving the research problems in hand. An example of primary data is the national census data collected by the government. Secondary data. Secondary data is the data that has already been collected through primary sources and made readily available for researchers to use for their own research. It is a type of data that has already been collected in the past. It may be data collected by someone else earlier. It must have been collected by surveys, observation, experiments, questionnaire, personal interview, government publications, websites, books, journal articles, international records, etc. Survey. Survey in research is defined as the collection of information from a sample of individuals through their responses to questions. Surveys are one of the most commonly used research tools for data collection because surveys can be utilized to collect data and describe naturally occurring phenomena that exist in the real world. They offer researchers a way to collect a great deal of information in a relatively quick and easy way. Observation. Observational research is a research technique where you observe participants and phenomena in their most natural settings. This enables researchers to see their subjects make choices and react to situations in their natural settings as opposed to structured settings like research labs or focus groups. Example, a doctor watching a patient after administering an injection. Experimental research. Experimental research is a study that strictly adheres to a scientific research design. It includes a hypothesis, a variable that can be manipulated by researcher, and variables that can be measured, calculated, and compared. Most importantly, experimental research is completed in a controlled environment. Questionnaire. It is a research tool featuring a series of questions used to collect useful information from respondents. A questionnaire is when you ask someone a series of questions and don't use it for data analysis. A survey is when you ask someone a series of questions and you use it for data analysis. Example, a series of questions about the working environment to an employee. Research instrument. A research instrument is a tool used to collect measure and analyze data related to your subject. Research instruments can be tests, surveys, scales, questionnaires, or even checklists. They include questionnaire, interviews, observations, focus group discussions, and experiments. Construct validity. Construct validity is the extent to which the measure behaves in a way consistent with theoretical hypothesis and represents how well scores on the instrument are indicative of the theoretical construct. Example, if a researcher develops a new questionnaire to evaluate respondents' levels of aggression, the construct validity of the instrument would be the extent to which it actually assesses aggression as opposed to assertiveness, social dominance, and so forth. Content validity. Content validity assesses whether a test representative of all aspects of the construct. To produce valid results, the content of a test, survey, or measurement method must cover all relevant parts of the subject it aims to ensure, it aims to measure. Example, if a test is designed to survey arithmetic skills at a third grade level, content validity indicates how well it represents the range of arithmetic operations possible at that level. Face validity. Face validity considers how suitable the content of a test seems to be on the surface. It is similar to content validity, but face validity is a more informal and subjective assessment. Example, a mathematical test consisting of problems in which the test taker has to add and subtract numbers may be considered to have strong face validity. Criterion validity. Criterion validity is an estimate of the extent to which a measure agrees with gold standard, that is, external criterion of the phenomenon being measured. The major problem in criterion validity testing for questionnaire based measures is the general back of gold standards, that is, an external criterion of the phenomenon being measured. Example, a job applicant takes performance test during the interview process. If this test accurately predicts how well the employee will perform on the job, the test is said to have criterion validity. Sampling. Sampling is the selection of a subset of the population of interest in a research study. In the vast majority of research endeavors, the participation of an entire population of interest is not possible. So, a smaller group is relied upon for data collection. Example, if a drug manufacturer would like to research the adverse side effects of a drug on the country's population, it is almost impossible to conduct a research study that involves everyone. In this case, the researcher decides a sample of people from each demographic and then researches them, giving him or her indicative feedback on the drug's behavior. Sample size. The sample size refers the total number of respondents included in a study. The sample size is defined as the number of observations used for determining the estimations of a given population. The size of the sample has been drawn from the population. The population refers here the total area or total number of respondents to be studied. A good maximum sample size is usually around 10% of the population as long as this does not exceed 1000. For example, in a population of 5000, 10% would be 500. In a population of 2 lakh, 10% would be 20,000. But now many scientific calculations are made to decide. Sampling plan. A sampling plan is a detailed outline of which measurements will be taken at what times, on which material, in what manner, and by whom. Sampling plans should be designed in such a way that the resulting data will contain a representative sample of the parameters of interest and allow for all questions as stated in the goals to be answered. Optimal sample size. It refers the right sample size which is sufficient enough to get accurate result. A good maximum sample size is usually 10% as long as it does not exceed 1000. A good maximum sample size is usually around 10% of the population. For example, a population of 5000, 10% would be 500. In a population of 2 lakh, 10% would be 20,000. Normally, the optimal sample size is calculated by using some formula in the modern business research. Unit 4. Data preparation. Data preparation is the process of cleaning and transforming raw data prior to processing and analysis. It refers consolidating data into one file or data table primarily for use in analysis. It is an important step prior to processing and often involves reformatting data, making corrections to data, and the combining of data sets to enrich the data. Data editing. Data editing is defined as the process involving the review and adjustment of collected survey data. Data editing is the application of checks to detect missing, invalid, or inconsistent entries, or to point to data records that are potentially in error. No matter what type of data you are working with, certain edits are performed at different stages or phases of data collection and processing. Data coding. Quantitative coding is the process of categorizing the collected non-numerical information into groups and assigning the numerical codes to these groups. Numeric coding is shared by all statistical software and among others. It facilitates data conversion and measurement comparisons. It refers to the process of transforming collected information or observations to a set of meaningful, cohesive categories. It is a process of summarizing and representing data in order to provide a systematic account of the recorded or observed phenomenon. Data entry. Data entry is the process of transcribing information into an electronic medium such as a computer or other electronic device. It can either be performed manually or automatically by using a machine or computer. Data entry helps companies in reducing the cost of operations by greatly reducing the infrastructure expenses. Validity of data. Data validation refers to the process of ensuring the accuracy and quality of data. It is implemented by building several checks into a system or report. Data validation is an essential part of any data handling task, whether you are in the field collecting information, analyzing data, or preparing to present data to stakeholders. If data is not accurate from the start, your results definitely won't be accurate. That's why it is necessary to verify and validate data before it is used. Qualitative data. Qualitative data is the descriptive and conceptual findings collected through questionnaires, interviews, or observations. Analyzing qualitative data allows us to explore ideas and further explain quantitative results. Example, it could be notes taken during a focus group on the quality of the food at a cafe or responses from the open-ended questionnaire. Quantitative data. Quantitative data is defined as the value of data in the form of counts or numbers where each data set has a unique numerical value associated with it. Examples: height in feet, age in years, and weight in kilograms. Bivariate analysis. Bivariate analysis refers to the analysis of two variables to determine relationships between them. Bivariate analysis are often reported in quality of life research. Example: ice cream sales versus the temperature on that day. The two variables are ice cream sales and temperature. Multivariate statistical techniques. Multivariate statistical analysis is the use of mathematical statistics methods to study and solve the problem. Multivariate statistics is a subdivision of statistics encompassing the simultaneous observation and analysis of more than one outcome variable. Example: we cannot predict the weather of any year based on the season. There are multiple factors like pollution, humidity, precipitation, etc. Factor analysis. Factor analysis is a way to condense the data in many variables into just a few variables. For this reason, it is also called dimension deduction. You can reduce the dimensions of your data into one or more super variables. The most common technique is known as principal component analysis (PCA). Example: intelligence research found that people who get a high score on a test of verbal ability are also good on other tests that require verbal abilities. Discriminant analysis. Discriminant analysis is a versatile statistical method often used by market researchers to classify observations into two or more groups or categories. In other words, discriminant analysis is used to assign objects to one group among the number of known groups. Example: a doctor could perform discriminant analysis to identify patients at high or low risk for stroke. Cluster analysis. Cluster analysis is a statistical method used to group similar objects into respective categories. It can also be referred to as segmentation analysis, taxonomy analysis, or clustering. Clustering is the task of grouping a set of objects in such a way that objects in the same group, called a cluster, are more similar in some sense to each other than to those in other groups. Multiple regression. Multiple regression analysis allows researchers to assess the strength of the relationship between an outcome, that is, the dependent variable, and several predictor variables, as well as the importance of each of the predictors to the relationship, often with the effect of other predictors statistically eliminated. Example: if you are doing multiple regression to predict the blood pressure, the independent variable, from the independent variables such as height. If you are doing a multiple regression to predict blood pressure, the dependent variable, from the independent variables such as height, weight, age, and hours of exercise per week, or even sex, as one of your independent variables. Correlation. Correlation analysis is a method of statistical evaluation used to study the strength of a relationship between two numerically measured continuous variables. Example: height and weight. This particular type of analysis is useful when the researcher wants to establish if there are possible connections between variables. Measurement. Measurement is the process of observing and recording the observations that are collected as part of a research effort. Such methods are used to identify how data will be gathered to measure project progress. They are important components of project log frame. Measurement methods are divided into two categories: quantitative and qualitative. We have discussed these two earlier. Scaling. Scaling is a method of placing respondents in continuation of gradual changes in the pre-assigned values, symbols, or numbers based on the features of a particular object as per the defined rules. Example, a toy car is a scale model of a life-size car. Also, miniature trains are scale models of life-size trains. Scaling is a very useful skill in the real world. Multidimensional scaling, in short form MDS. Multidimensional scaling is a statistical technique that allows researchers to find and explore underlying themes or dimensions in order to explain similarities or dissimilarities between investigated data sets. Example, a matrix of perceived similarities between various brands of air fresheners. Here, the MDS plots the brands on a map such that those brands that are perceived to be very similar to each other are placed near each other on a map, and those brands that are perceived to be very different each other next. Conjoint analysis. Conjoint analysis is a form of statistical analysis that firms use in market research to understand how customers value different components or features of their products or services. Example, a TV manufacturer would want to know if customers value picture or sound quality more, or if they value low price more than picture quality.